So here are the countries in Global South. In Latin America, we have Belize, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, and Honduras. While in Africa, we have Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Ghana. While in Asia, we have Russia, China, India, Kazakhstan, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Philippines. Next slide, please. Next is impact of regionalism in Global South. For example, the reasons behind growth of regionalism in India. So what are these reasons? First is historical and geographical isolation. Next, lopsided development. Next, continuous neglect of a region. Insider-outsider complex that nurtures nativism and son of the soil ideology. Internal colonialism, that is, despite being rich in natural resources, some regions remain economically underdeveloped. The reasons being either ill-conceived top-down approach or survival of one region at the cost of the other region. Chota Nagpur Plateau is an example of this type of underdevelopment. Next, political vested interests can accentuate and exploit regional loyalties. Linguistic aspirations that have remained a formidable basis of regionalism. Lastly, expression of ethnicity. Impact of regionalism on Indian policy. First, rise of regional parties. Next, refocus on regional issues. Next, regionalist tendencies often steer in interstate hostility as its spillover effect. Next, regional movement often result in violent agitations, disturbs not only the law and order situation but also have negative implications on the economy of the state as well as the nation. Next, regionalism sometimes undercuts the national interest by being a hurdle in international diplomacy. Next, for instance, the oppositions of the central government had a direct implication on the relation of India and Sri Lanka. Next, regionalism can become a shield for militancy extremism to create an internal security threat. Kashmir militancy is an example of this type of regionalism. Next, regionalism beyond a point can lead or successionism, such, such as a strong regionalism in Punjab ultimately resulted in the growth of Khalistani terrorism. Regionalism often promotes vote blank politics, thereby weakens the national integration. And lastly, positive regionalism promotes a sense of pride in connecting to one's root and culture. And that's all for South, for Global South and impacts of regionalism in Global South. Thank you.
The gap of between Global South and Global North. Despite very significant development gains globally, which have raised many millions of people out of absolute poverty, there is a substantial evidence that inequality between the world's richest and poorest countries is widening. Mostly in year 1820, Western Europe's capita income was 3 times bigger in Africa's. In 2000, it was 13 times a big. Next slide, please. In addition, in 2013, Oxfam reported that the richest 85 people in the world owned the same amount of wealth as the poorest half of the world's population. Today, the world is so much more complex than the broad line depicts, as many poor countries have experienced significant economic and social development. Next slide. However, inequality within countries has also been growing, and some commentators now talk of a global north and a global south, referring respectively to richer to poorer communities. For example, India is a home to the largest concentration of poor people in a single nation. It also has very sizable middle class and a very rich elite. As all we know that ang India amo na sa ang lugar sang mga poor people. Usually gid kay ang India ang may pinakadamo nga population nga pigado. And also sa India man may ara man sila sizable, which is nga mo na sa fairly ang middle class kag ang rich elite. Next please. There are many causes of inequalities, including the availability of natural resources, different levels of health and education, the nature of a country's economy and its industrial sectors, international trading policies and access to markets, how countries are governed and international relationships between countries, conflict within and between countries, and countries' vulnerability to natural hazards and climate change. That's all.
So these are the sources that we have taken for where our report came from. So that will be the end of our discussion. We hope that you have learned something about our report. I hope you have a good day, everyone. Thank you.